Welcome back, gears. This one is going to be more of a talking kind of discussion video, bringing you my own tier list of how I rank all the classes in Gears 5. Yes, both Cherry Quench and Turner Burner have already done this, but I wanted to bring my take on this as well. I've done thorough class guides on each and every single class for Gears 5, giving you guys plenty of different builds and information for all classes. And the support you guys have shown for all those videos has been amazing, so thank you for that. With that in mind, I feel like I'm in a good spot to make this tier list, and I will keep my bias out of this as well. I'm only going to do a tier list for Horde mode since I haven't really covered much Escape on my channel. I don't think I'm really in the best position to do one for Escape though. So here's what I'm going to be judging all of these classes on. Damage output, both single target and area damage. All the utility these classes provide, this can be anything from regenerating ammo, providing stim, buffing damage, giving ultimate cooldown, those kinds of things. Crowd control effects, taunting, stuns, slows, you know what these kinds of things are. The survivability of all of these classes, how easy they are to pick up and play, and finally the build diversity that these classes offer. So that's what I'm going to be grading it on. You've seen this tier list before if you've watched any other tier list videos from other content creators. We've got all 19 classes and all the different ranks going from S to C, and we will cover these classes in the order they appear in game. So, starting out with the Blademaster, where will we rank this one? I'm going to put the Blademaster in A tier. The Blademaster has very, very good single target damage with melee, Nasher and bleed, but it doesn't really get that much in terms of area damage. The only area damage the Blademaster really gets is with the Shock Chain skill card, which only affects this class's ultimate ability. This class doesn't have much in terms of utility. You can generate some ammo for teammates with executions. You can generate a lot of stim for yourself with a couple of cards, Energy Surge and Shock Shield. You do have a gold skill card which can give you some ultimate cooldown, and you do have increased movement speed, but that's about it. You don't really have any crowd control either. Your Electroblade ultimate ability is a massive crowd control, but again, you don't always have that up and available. For survivability though, my god, the Blademaster, it's hard to kill one of these guys. A stupid amount of survivability. You get damage resistance and health regeneration on perks. You get health regen and melee resistance on your passive. You get forced health regeneration with Thrill of the Hunt. You've got 4 different damage resistance cards, and like I mentioned earlier, you've got Energy Surge and Shock Shield to give you stim in 2 different cases. Very, very hard to take down a Blademaster. And because it is the Blademaster, getting up close and personal and punching enemies in the face is quite easy to do for anyone. On harder difficulties, it's not as easy to implement. So this is where this class does struggle a little bit. It's definitely better on smaller maps or those maps that you can get a lot of choke points on, so like Forge when you are building the base upstairs. One of the things that brings the Blademaster down, in my opinion, is the lack of build diversity this class has. In fact, when I did my Blademaster class guide, I only recommended 2 different builds, a close range melee build and a slightly longer range build. It's the long range build on the Blademaster that definitely suffers. There's not enough cards or damage output for the Blademaster, so it lacks a bit there. I think the class definitely needs some other cards, either to buff the claw even more or to get some buffs with pistols and that sort of thing. But A is where I am happy for the Blademaster to go. Up next is Demolitions. I would also put that in A tier. Not quite S tier, it was very, very close. By far one of the best classes for damage output, both single target and area damage. That artillery strike ultimate is absolutely devastating. Custom boom shot, custom lancer GL, razor hail, spot of support. All of these cards help with that insane damage output for the Demolitions. Utility is definitely where it drops off though. You can generate ammo with good kill. Woo! And you get a bit of ultimate cooldown with confirmed kill and a perk. That's about all the utility this class has, so it's kind of lacking there. As well as in the crowd control, again, very much like the Blademaster, you can get a stun on your ultimate, but remember the Demolitions ultimate takes 10 minutes to cool down at base value. So being able to stun a bunch of enemies every 10 minutes is not that good. In terms of survivability, definitely one of the weakest classes in the game. You have to play quite safe as you only have one damage resistance card, and that is Inspired. I even forgot about this card the first time I recorded this video, so it's not a very good card, but you know, at least it counts for a little bit. By far though, Demo, very, very easy to play. Anyone can pick up and play this class, but I do tend to find the people that play Demo also kind of just sit there and occasionally shoot boom shots and then moan at you to give you 4 individual weapon lockers whilst only getting 3 kills around. When I do see a good demolitionist, I am amazed because the amount of damage they can put out is absolutely fantastic. It's just that 9 out of 10 demos that I play with are a bit lackluster. So Demo as well, one of the more fleshed out classes in my opinion. You've got a wide range of builds and weapons that you can use. You can use obviously your ultimate, it's devastating. You can focus on using the boom shot. You can focus on Lancer GL. You can do a lot with grenades. You can even do stuff with, and I know someone's going to particularly hate me for saying this, but you can do stuff with the salvo drop shot and torque bow if you really get stuck. So the build diversity and weapon choice with this class is actually pretty decent. So A is where I'm putting the demolitions. It's just the survivability and utility of the class that's not quite edged it into S for me. Next up is the Infiltrator. Now, this one I am putting in B tier. The Infiltrator is definitely one of my favourite classes, but I can see where this class definitely lacks. You have decent high single target damage with blood resonance, chain, kind of, custom nasher, and laceration, but there's absolutely no area damage on this class whatsoever. You do get to move around quicker, you've got a lot of self-stimming, you can get a bit of increased ammo capacity on the overkill, and you can make your ultimate last for a very long time with cloak batteries and chain. Sometimes you can go whole rounds and be invisible, which is quite good. No crowd control though. Absolutely zero crowd control on this class. Not even any on the ultimate like the Blademaster or Demo. So basically pointless there. Survivability, not quite as good as the Blademasters in my opinion. Yes, you can generate stim with every execution, melee, bleed, shotgun kill. You've got a couple of different damage resistance cards as well. Fair enough, Driven and Enhanced Stim is definitely the better of the two. That is a very, very good card to keep you alive. And if you've got the, what's it called? The Stim Capacity skill card as well, you can hold a stupid amount of Stim. Infiltrator, definitely a very, very easy class to play. But like the Blademaster on harder difficulties, if you get caught out in the open, you're going to get screwed. It's definitely better on those smaller maps or where there's a lot of chokehold that you can make use of close range. Another area that the Infiltrator lacks in is build diversity, in my opinion. When I did my my Infiltrator video, I've just checked, it's the very first Horde class guide I did, so that's going way back. But I only recommended one build. That's it, that's all you really get. You can either do this one build with extra shotgun damage and then a bit more survivability, or you can go around executing enemies for longer with chain. But that's it, it's either survivability or cloaking. Those are your real two options. Definitely needs more cards to buff the overkill in my opinion. Maybe some stuff to buff executions. I know we're not going to get it right now, but maybe for Gear 6. Up next, Marksman. Where would I put this? I would put it right next to the Infiltrator in my opinion. Yes, it has very high single target damage like the Infiltrator. Slightly better off on area damage with the explosive headshot skill card. So it does definitely do a little bit better there. The utility that this class provides is a little bit better as well. You can freeze bosses with the Icy Precision card. That card allows you to freeze enemies if you, I think it's when you first unlock it, it takes 8 headshots 8 critical hits. And when you max it out, it's only 3 critical hits, but it's very, very good for freezing bosses. When you freeze an enemy, you can obviously, all your teammates will do extra damage to it, so very good for that. And you can get the ultimate back and have the ultimate going for quite a while with the Marksman. So a little bit better in utility there, in my opinion. Crowd control, like I said, you can freeze enemies, but that's it. It only really applies to bosses, so very much in the same sort of boat as Demolitions and Blademaster, in my opinion. Survivability of this class, very lacking once again. I'd say it's definitely just a little bit better in survivability than the demo, but only just. You've got one good damage resistance card. However, that ultimate allows you to shoot through walls, so you can get yourself set up in a nice spot, never take any damage whilst taking out lots of different enemies all around the map. Snipers, well, Marksman, a little bit trickier to play. You have to at least be a half decent shot. You can't get away with just firing boom shots off randomly like the demo. So I would say his class is a little bit harder to play, but it is very rewarding for someone that is a crack shot. It lacks build diversity though. In fact, the Marksman video I did, I only recommended one build, and that was all damage focus, but it definitely needs more cards in my opinion, either to buff the marks of damage, buff the M-bar, or even do something with the Boltok damage in my opinion. Something just to give it that little bit extra. Next up is the last of the damage classes, the Nomad. I will put this in A tier next to the Demolitions. This class has just as good single target damage in my opinion, with Markser and Nasher, so long range and short range. The consecutive shot skill card is fantastic. Armored shot is amazing for bleeding damage. Rain down and acceleration are both good as well. You don't really have much in terms of area damage though. Technically, the Lancer GL's grenades do work with the armored shot skill card, so you can get some area damage with that, but it does require that you get some stim and you keep hold of it. So bit of a niche playstyle, but it does kind of work. In terms of utility, you get quite a bit of healing with this class. You can heal with powered sprint, the lifeline card. You've got a very short ultimate cooldown. You can get it back even quicker with menace. You can hold a boatload of ammo with extra perks. And the main thing, your passive, you do increased damage to any enemies that are feared. And this goes into the next thing with crowd control. The Nomad is possibly one of the best crowd control classes in the entire game. The fear affects almost every enemy in the game. It doesn't affect lambent enemies and some bosses, but getting extra damage on the enemies that it does affect is amazing. Plus, you can trigger fear in 3 different ways. You can do it with the ultimate, you can do it with the phase skill card, and you can do it with the intimidation skill card as well. And you can also stun drone-like enemies with Boltok headshots as well, but I forget what the name of that card is. But a lot of crowd control on the Nomad. Pretty tanky as well. Not quite as much as the Blademaster, but you definitely get a lot more than some of the other damage classes. You've got the max health perk. Obviously, more health is better. You've got 3 different damage resistance cards. You've got Lifeline. You've got the Execution Shield, which can generate stim. And obviously the healing that I mentioned before from Lifeline and Powered Sprint as well. Quite a tanky class. Bit more skill reliant though. Just like the Marksman. Personally, I suck with the Marks. I'm terrible with it. I like the consecutive shot skill card, but I just can't hit headshots with the Markser. So I always find myself going to the long shot, and even then, I do miss. I'm not perfect. Got pretty decent build diversity on the Nomad as well. I think I suggested 3 classes, but 1 was definitely a bit lacking in my video anyway. And in my opinion, I've not really been able to think of much that could be added to this class to flesh it out even more. Possibly a little bit more for the close range, but that's about it. Okay, let's move on to the tank classes next. First up is the Anchor. Now this Anchor I am definitely going to put in S tier. For me, one of the best classes in the game. You get very high single target damage with Bloody Shot. Bullet Chain is also really good to get that stacking damage as well. No area damage though. unless you count Lethal Barrier, but I'm not really going to count that because it's quite a weak card. It's the utility of this class that is definitely up there. You get that team-wide barrier ultimate that can shield everyone behind it, and it provides a damage buff to everyone shooting through it, yourself included. You can make your barrier last for, I think, a minimum of 32 seconds with barrier battery, and sorry, not barrier battery, barrier feedback. The barrier battery card can extend that even further. You get the ammo regeneration perk, and you get increased bolt-up carrying capacity. You get team-wide healing and stim generation with the harness energy skill card. There's a lot going on with this class. In terms of crowd control, it's definitely one of the better classes. You can taunt any enemy you headshot. As the anchor, you are going to be going for headshots a lot of the time anyway, since the bolt-up seems to devastate there. So basically keeping any single enemy taunted, as long as you're hitting those critical hits, is amazing. The anchor is a very tanky class as well. That barrier ultimate is an absolute godsend. Crazy tough, giving you 60% extra health. You get plenty of damage resistance with the perk, and you get the dodge skill card as well. And you get health and stim generation with the harness energy card as well. Very, very tanky. The main thing for me though, the anchor, it's very, very strong class early on. You get the bloody shot skill card, I think it's at level 4. So you can do a lot very early on with this class. And even if you're not the best shot, that bloody shot skill card is quite forgiving even with body shots. Couple of decent builds as well. You can go full damage, you can go full sniper, you can be a frontline tank for your team. You do have a lot of build options with the anchor, and that's why I'm putting it in S tier. Definitely one of the better classes in the game, in my opinion. So next up is the Brawler. For me, I'm going to put the Brawler in A tier. Very, very decent, consistent single target damage. Haymaker gives it plenty of single target damage. Play with Fire, Pyromaniacs. Scorcher Mastery is a bit lackluster, but definitely helps. Torch Tackle. These are all very, very good single target damage kind of cards. The area damage does suffer a little bit, since all you really have is the All the Glory skill card, which causes burning enemies to explode, and your ultimate ability, where you can get extended radius on the burning with that as well. Ultimate, bit below average in terms of utility as well. You get the ultimate cooldown with a perk and the burn and recharge skill card. You can generate stim with your passive shoulder charge. You get some ammo regeneration, and you can also extend your ultimate with killing time, but nothing too extravagant there. The class definitely makes up for it though in terms of some crowd control. That glow and slow skill card is one of my favorites. You can slow any enemy that's on fire. You can stun drones with your passive melee hits, and you can stagger enemies that are affected with All the Glory. So say like if you've got a drone down next to a Scion, having that blow up is going to stagger everything around it, including the Scion. Pretty decent. Tankiness is definitely where the Brawler makes up for this though. You get the max health perk and the perk up skill card, which also affects your health and health regeneration. You get stim on tackle with your passive, and even more with the defensive tackle skill card. You get damage resistance with Flashball Pro, Inner Fire, and Damage Dash. Do suffer a little bit if you try to do a melee build, but Soothing Warmth technically is a survivability card, although it is a bit lackluster. Brawler, like with the Blademaster, very easy to use. It's a melee class. All you do is run around shoulder charging enemies, staying alive. But a long range build with play with fire needs a bit more practice, as you rely very heavily on active reloads. But like I said, melee build, long range build, two very distinct builds. Personally, I'd like to see a couple more cards. Something to buff incendiaries wouldn't be bad, but A is where I'm leaving this one. Next up is Gunner. For me, the Gunner is definitely an S tier class. It's got decent single target damage. Nothing as high as obviously Demolitions, Nomad, Blademaster, that kind of thing. But the area damage that this can provide with Reflective Shell Ultimate, the Reflect Shredder, and Serrated Edge skill cards are also very, very deadly. It's more the utility that this class provides, though. Oh, it's amazing. You can get team-wide damage resistance with Team Resist, Heavy Deflect, Blast Shield. You can get your ultimate back very, very quickly. You can generate ultimate cooldown for all your teammates with the Heavy Charger skill card. You get some heavy ammo regeneration as well. Technically, it helps the Mulcher kind of playstyle. But the main thing is the ultimate duration. Making that reflective shell go from 6 to 12 seconds is absolutely phenomenal. Crowd control, definitely one of the better aspects as well. You can taunt any enemy with Grub Magnet, which is on headshots. You can freeze enemies technically faster with the Flash Freeze skill card as well. But it's the concussive explosive skill card that I really love. Hitting an enemy with explosives will stun them repeatedly, so you can keep bosses stun locked with this class indefinitely. It's absolutely phenomenal. In fact, Cherry Quench did a video where he was using a salvo on Bunker and just kept one side of the map pretty much stunned the entire time. It was absolutely amazing. Survivability of this class, it's the gunner. You have the Reflective Shell Ultimate. You've got a boatload of damage resistance cards. You've got Bait Armor, which stacks damage resistance, Blast Shield, Heavy Deflect, Tank Synergy, Team Resist, a max health perk. You can be immune on Revive as well as generate some stim. You have a card which makes it take a lot longer to be frozen. You heal with heavy weapon damage from your passive. You've just got a lot of survivability with this class. It's absolutely ridiculous. Very, very easy to play the gunner as well. All you have to do is just stay alive and occasionally use your ultimate if you get into a bad situation. I've seen gunners do a stupid amount of damage because they've had a boss look at them and they've activated the reflective shell at the right time to do hundreds of thousands of damage very, very quickly. Gunner, by far one of my favourite classes, though. A lot of different playstyles. You can be full on tank. You can use any of the heavy weapons and be pretty decent with it. You can just go full on torque bow. You can technically use any rifle and be fine with it because that practice everyday skill card is just amazing as well. Never having to reload whilst you use your ultimate, and your ultimate comes back very, very quickly. Gunner, definitely an S tier class in my opinion. Up next is the pilot. I'm going to put the pilot in A tier here. Again, it's got decent, consistent single target damage with the Bleeding Mulcher skill card. The Enforce Expert card as well isn't too bad. You definitely have a little bit better in terms of area damage. Silverback Salvo can affect a lot of enemies and extend your ultimate as well. And the Hammer skill card as well, which area damage and a stun on that, absolutely amazing. This class's utility is fairly average. You can hold more ammo with a ammo capacity perk, and technically a little bit more with a deep pocket skill card, though that only affects pistols. You generate a lot of stim with this class. You can do a lot of healing with explosives. You can keep your silverback alive as well with explosives or the tri-shot. And you've even got that ultimate cooldown perk as well to get it back even faster. The crowd control sucks though on this class. It's not the best. The taunt that the pilot has only affects full health enemies, one of the worst taunts in the game. But you can stun any target indefinitely with the hammer skill card, but that requires you to use a drop shot. And you are going to freeze any low health enemies that you target. More effective for bosses though, much in the same way that the Marksman's Icy Precision card works. In terms of survivability, definitely up there. I wouldn't say it's as tanky as the Anchor, but I'd definitely say it's a little bit better than the Brawler. The Silverback, very tanky on its own. You get very, very good damage resistance from behind with the... What's that skill card called? Can't remember what it's called, but you get a lot of damage resistance when you take damage from behind. You can generate a lot of stim. You can do a lot of healing. And you've got, like I said, you've got 3 different cards. You've got healing explosives, healing munitions, and healing tri-shot, but that one does only count for the silverback. And you've got an increased max health perk as well. For me, though, what kind of lets this class down a little bit is the ultimate. Definitely early on, the silverback ultimate is pretty useless until about level 7, I think it is. And there's no tutorial for the silverback. So on PC anyway, the controls for the silverback are different in the campaign and the Hivebusters compared to what they are for Horde. So that can be a little bit confusing. But once you are familiar with how the silverback works in Horde, this class is absolutely amazing and can do a boatload of damage. Doesn't have many builds though. You can either do a lot of damage and have a lot of survivability in the silverback or out the silverback. You don't really have much in terms of being like the tank of the group, since the taunt doesn't really work that well. So A is definitely where I'm going to put this, and I'm happy with it being there. The last tank class we have to cover is the veteran. I'm putting the veteran in B tier. So the veteran, for me, it has very, very good damage with rifles, with the custom lancer, flankum, and headshot, master, and last ditch skill cards. Technically, you can use them on the long shot, but it doesn't really get anything in terms of area damage. Technically, someone's going to say Living Legend lets you target the whole map. Yes, but it lets everyone do that, not just the veteran. You do get a fair amount of ammo regeneration though with this class. You can get your ultimate back very quickly with the perk and the brutal efficiency skill card. Focus gives your ultimate a much longer duration. You obviously you can provide the team-wide aimbot for the whole team if you want, which can also generate stim as well for anyone affected by your ultimate. So not bad in terms of utility. The veteran doesn't have anything in terms of crowd control though. Absolutely nothing. The exact same as the infiltrator. Not bad in terms of survivability as well. You get the max health perk, you get stim generation and capacity with Band of Brothers like I mentioned, and defensive stim lets you hold a lot more. But the main thing for me is the resistance cards. Dug in gives you up to 60% damage resistance from all sources whilst you're in cover, which is absolutely fantastic. And explosive resistance just tops that up a little bit more. The veteran though, it's definitely one of the easiest classes to use. In my eyes, it's a bit of a lazy pick, but it's very effective at the same time. And it does get more and more effective the more skill cards and the more you invest in this class. But you're only ever going to be like a long range aimbot using either a Lancer, Retro, GL, or Longshot. So it's a bit boring, it's a bit repetitive for me. I think it definitely needs either more to be like a tank, so taunting enemies, or a bit more in terms of area damage, and that would possibly bump it up for me. But B is where I'm happy to keep it for now. Moving on to the support classes next, we have the Combat Medic. I'm going to put this one right next to the Veteran as well. This is basically the complete opposite of the Veteran. You've got okay single target damage with the passive rifle buff and the custom Lancer skill card, but again, no real area damage with this class. So it's the utility of the Combat Medic that definitely, oh, it's absolutely amazing. You get a lot of healing and stim generation with helpful headshots. You can revive the whole team with your Team Revive ultimate, which can also provide stim and revive teammates at a distance. And you have the intervention card, which can also help revive teammates as well at a distance. You've got healing and damage resistance once again with the overdoing it and healing bounty skill card. You get ultimate cooldown with suppressive recharge and a perk. And you can also repair fortifications using the team repair card, I think it's called. Absolutely one of the best classes. It can do pretty much everything. It can't crowd control though. That's where this definitely sucks. Absolutely has no crowd control whatsoever. In terms of survivability though, quite a bit more. Like I said, you can heal yourself, you can provide stim. You've got, I think it's 4 different damage resistance cards. You've got dodge, overdoing it, razor's edge, and perfect condition. That's it. You get the max health perk, get intervention, which technically you can revive yourself with intervention as well if you get some sort of weird kill after you go down. Very, very, very easy to play this class. Problem I have though, some medics, they kind of hold on to their ultimate, hoping that it gets them like some amazing team revive where it revives all 5 teammates. Even just reviving 1 or 2 teammates is good enough because the cooldown on it is very, very short, and you get that ultimate cooldown perk as well, making it even shorter. Not much build diversity for the class though, it's definitely where it lacks a bit. In my opinion, the class needs a few more damage-oriented cards. Something I thought of was, as you revive teammates, those teammates can do extra damage. Sorry, those teammates and yourself can do extra damage for, I don't know, 10 to 15 seconds, something like that. Or as your teammates die off, the combat medic does more damage. Something of that sort of nature. But B is where I'm happy for it to go. It just lacks in crowd control and damage, and that's why I'm happy to put it in B. Next up, we have Jack. Now, Jack is also going to go into B tier as well. For me, Jack has basically no single target damage whatsoever. It's one of the worst, obviously. It's only Jack. Single target does become a hell of a lot better, though, if you use your ultimate, because that Rampage skill card can absolutely shred enemies, but you don't always have your hijack available. Area damage suffers as well. Jack has absolutely 0 area damage as the robot. It's the hijack ultimate that makes up for it, but it only works if you've got, say, like a boom shot scion, a drop shot scion, a Ferron guard, something that can provide the area damage. So very, very lackluster in damage most of the time. It's all the healing and repairing, the ammo generation, providing weapons, providing energy. The cloak that you can get out the map. You can provide a damage buff to teammates. You get ultimate cooldown with a perk. It's one of the best utility classes. I'd say it's definitely on par, or maybe even better than the combat medic, actually. And you can technically stun a single target indefinitely, but remember, it doesn't work on bosses, so don't go trying to stun a Swarmac. It's just going to stand on you and kill you. Survivability of Jack, though, that's something that's a bit lacking. Yes, you can cloak most of the time, and if they can't see you, they can't shoot you. But if you happen to uncloak next to an elite drone, it's going to tear you apart. You do have the increased health and health regeneration perks, but you can still be killed very quickly as Jack. Jack's a very, very good addition to Gears 5. In fact, he's one of the best additions to Gears Horde for a long while. Very, very good for new players, but you know, all the players that have maxed this class out, you can definitely get a hell of a lot more out of it as well. The skill card that provides more energy, one of the best, and you can go full on rampage mode with rampage and backstab to get your ultimate to last for a stupidly long time, killing loads of enemies in the process. And with that though, you do only have those 2 kinds of playstyles. You can be supportive, healing, repairing, generating energy, or you can use your ultimate to try and tear through the enemy forces as much as possible every time your ultimate's available. Those are the only 2 real kind of builds you have. I do think a couple extra cards would be nice, but I'm happy where Jack is. I do hope they bring him back for Gears 6 Horde, maybe even give him some more skill cards, some more usability, but I am very happy where he is right now. Next up is the mechanic. And it's this little icon here. Technically, this is the old one, but some fancy post-production will fix that. But for now, let's put the mechanic where it belongs, in A tier. Decent single target damage with the custom robotics skill card, personal defense, and shredder rounds. All the area damage that the mechanic provides comes from fortifications like your barriers, your sentries, and you can get even more area damage with the overload skill card. For the love of God, though, don't build sentries first. This is one thing that a lot of people have put in comments. Make sure you have barriers and weapon lockers for the rest of your team. You can't do a lot on your own as the mechanic. You do provide the base, though. Like I said, provide those barriers and those weapon lockers first so you can slow down the enemies. You can store and regenerate ammo for your team. You can provide energy with the help of Jack. Obviously, repair all fortifications, get that stim with the healing think it's healing repair card. You can also spam your ultimate a little bit if you decide to use the root kit card. In terms of crowd control, though, again, it all comes from fortifications. Your barriers are going to slow or stop enemies. Your shock sentries are going to stun a single enemy that they shoot at and cause damage. Decoys are going to distract enemies as well. Don't have any personal crowd control with this class. It all comes from building a base. I mentioned this card already, but healing repair. That's one of your main survivability tools as the mechanic. You are going to generate stim as long as you are repairing, but you don't have much else. You've only got 2 other damage resistance cards, flow and long range resistance. That's it. Healing repair is definitely the best survivability tool for this class in my opinion, but survivability is where this class suffers just a little bit. Mechanics though, easy to play if you know what you're doing. New players or low level engineers may not always be the best, so they may be what lets your team down. That's not particularly their fault. Gears 5 hasn't done anything to show tutorials for Horde mode. Something that I might do if you do have a lower level or a new engineer that doesn't quite know what they're doing. Rather than berate them, just send them a message, tell them what to do, help move fortifications around to put them in more optimal places. But most of the time, if you see a mechanic level 60, in fact level 10 or higher, they're probably going to know what they're doing, so just leave them to do what they need to do. Mechanic, A tier in my opinion. Survivability and a lack of crowd control is just what kept it out of S for me, but A is where I'm happy for it to be. The Robotics Expert is next. Again, I would call this one A tier as well. Better single target damage than the Mechanic. Bloody support and bloody DR1. Experimental weapons also provides a single target damage buff. But again, all the area damage comes from your fortifications, just the same as a mechanic. Your barriers, your sentries, MG sentry upgrade as well, that provides even more for this class. You're going to do the exact same things as you do with the mechanic. You're going to provide a base, you're going to build weapon lockers, you're going to store weapons, you're going to generate ammo. You can help provide energy as well. If you have a jack, you will repair fortifications through damage, or you can manually repair stuff with Nerves of Steel, Combat Engineer. You get some ultimate cooldown as well with Inspired Sniping if you want to use that card. And just like the mechanic, you don't have any crowd control really as the Robotics Expert. You technically have a little bit of personal crowd control with the Robotics Expert. Your ultimate does kind of taunt enemies, but all the crowd control is going to come from fortifications. Your barriers, like I said, are going to slow and stop enemies. Your decoys are going to distract, and your shock sentries are going to stun enemies. This class definitely suffers a little bit in terms of survivability though. You can't generate stim like the mechanic, but you do have 3 different damage resistance cards though to help keep you alive. For me, the Robotics Expert is a little bit more skill dependent as you have to hit headshots if you want to make use of the Precision Repairs card. You don't technically have to get headshot kills, but those are technically going to be slightly easier and will do a lot more damage. But with that, you do have 2 kind of playstyles. You can be a supportive, build your base. You can be the team engineer, keeping stuff topped up whilst doing a little bit of damage occasionally. Or you can just go full on damage, you know, summoning your ultimate every now and like as often as you can, should I say. Sniping, and even obviously being slightly supportive with a sniping build, helping out your actual engineer by repairing stuff for free. This class needs a little bit more to shake up the engineer role a little bit, but I'm happy with it being in A. It's the survivability and lack of build diversity that sort of kept this one out of S tier, but I am happy with where the Robotics Expert has ended up. Last but not least, for the support classes, Tactician, I'm going to put this one all the way up in S tier. For me, the Tactician is great with single target damage. You've got modified hammer burst, you've got discipline. Discipline will help any ballistic damage at all with this class. The area damage, any explosive damage, and shredder is going to do amazing work with this class. But the utility, this class has a lot. You can mark a boatload of enemies. You've got interrogation, you've got situational awareness, you've got eagle eyes, If you pair any of those skill cards as well with Cooperation, that provides a damage buff for anyone on your team targeting your marks. If they kill your mark, they also get a cooldown reduction from your passive. And if you've got a skill card equipped, I forget what it's called, but you can give them even more cooldown reduction. You have cooldown reduction on your own perks. You can provide damage resistance and healing with your ultimate, which also provides ammo regeneration and explosive ammo regeneration for anyone stood inside. And you can make that last for even longer as well with resupply duration. There's a lot going on with this class. Something that doesn't happen with this class though is crowd control, unfortunately. That's the one thing that kind of lets it down. Pretty decently tanky though, in my opinion. You do have that max health perk, so it is easier to survive as this class than, say, the Demolitions, which is probably closest to. You get damage resistance with the Battle Hardened skill card and the Resupply healing module, and you also get that extra healing with the gold card as well. This class is effective at lower ranks with the modified Hammer Burst and at the intermediate levels with Shredder, and then even more so when you've got those higher level cards like Cooperation. The Tactician as well, it's one of those classes that's got a number of builds. For me, you can play it completely supported, providing ammo regen, damage buffs, cooldown reduction. You can go full on single target damage with rifles. You can go full on area damage with grenades and explosives. This class has got a lot going for it. I am happy to put it in S tier. To be honest, it was between Tactician, Blademaster, and Demolitions. They were all sort of just between S and A, and I just think it's the survivability and the utility that the Tactician provides that pushes it up to S tier for me and pushes the other two classes down into A. S tier for me, absolutely where it should be. Happy with this class. Now on to the promotional classes. First up is the Architect. I'm going to put this into B tier, simply because it has a below average single target damage with Deception. That's the only real single target damage card it has. And just like the other two Engineer classes, all the area damage comes from fortifications. Barriers and sentries are going to be probably your main bits of damage output, and top of the line can help that a little bit. Just like the Mechanic and Robotics Expert, you will provide a base, keep your team alive, generate ammo, provide weapon lockers. You can provide energy with the help of Jack. You will repair fortifications. You get a lot of stimmers this class as well, though, with Regenerative Field. You can get your ultimate back very quickly with Root Kit, and your ultimate duration can also be extended with two different cards, Hologram Lifetime and Hologram Extend. Very similar to the Robotics Expert, that hologram that you have does act as a moving decoy and is just that little bit extra crowd control compared to the Mechanic. But again, most of your crowd control is going to be coming from your fortifications, barriers to slow, shock sentries to stun, and decoys to once again distract. Survivability of this class, very lackluster. You have the stim generation like I mentioned, and you have the extra stim capacity, but you only have one damage resistance card, which is Flow, and that only affects you while you are repairing. So a little bit lackluster on survivability. Very easy to play this, in fact, probably just as easy as the Mechanic. You don't have to be getting headshots to repair your fortifications. You do it all manually with the repair efficiency skill card. But again, if you've got a new player playing as the Architect, as your team's engineer, help them out, put their fortifications in the right positions to maximize the use, and help them out, tell them how to build and stuff like that. Promotional classes. This is something I'm going to be saying repeatedly for the next 3 positions. There's no build diversity with these classes. This one, well, the Architect technically has 2 different kinds of builds, either damage or engineer, which is more than the others. But all 4 of these definitely needed a lot more cards to be better off. B is where I'm leaving this class. I'm happy with it going there. It was borderline C, but I bumped it up just because it's got a little bit more build diversity than the other classes. Next up is the Protector, C tier. You've got decent single target damage with Bloody Blade, Big Knife, Nasher M45 mod. You get the damage perk as well. but you don't really have any area damage on this class whatsoever. It's all melee damage. You do get a movement speed buff in Horde. You get ultimate cooldown with close range recharge and a perk. Your ultimate duration can be extended with the drop shield duration card. And just like the Architect, you generate stim consistently with regenerative field. But once again, just like the Infiltrator, just like the Veteran and the Combat Medic, there's no crowd control whatsoever on this class. One of the worst for crowd control entirely in the game. Survivability, a little bit lacking here. Like I said, you can regenerate stim consistently, and you do have a damage resistance perk as well, and your drop shield can technically help keep you alive, but you have to get in close to optimize this class. So that means running straight at enemies, which are going to have plenty of time to gun you down before you can get close. Just like the Blademaster and the Infiltrator, it definitely suffers from those bigger maps. So you need those smaller maps or good choke points to really make the most out of this class. No build diversity on the Protector though. Every person that ever plays a Protector is going to run the exact same 4 cards with only one card being slightly different depending on who's playing it. We definitely need more cards for these classes, but C tier is definitely where it is for me. Next up, Slugger. C tier as well. This class has got decent single target damage with Power Shot and the damage perk. Decent area damage with grenades. You've got the grenade proficiency card as well, lethal preparations, grenade capacity, and you've even got the grenade resupply perk to keep you well stocked. So the area damage isn't bad on this one. It's the utility that lets it down though. All you do is generate grenades for yourself and get a little bit of ultimate cooldown with a perk. You don't really provide any utility for the team whatsoever. Crowd control suffers as well. You can stun drones with impact receiver on active Nasher hits, and your heavy hitter ultimate will stagger anything that you shoot through. That's it though. Survivability as well is a bit lacking. You have your explosive damage resistance on your passive. You have a damage resistance perk as well as a tough skin skill card. But for me, if you could just generate a little bit of stim on this class, it would definitely be bumped up that little bit more. Easy to play though. All you ever do is plant grenades and shoot stuff. It's very, very simple class to play, no matter what level you are. But no build diversity. Once again, it's a promotional class. There's only ever 5 cards you're going to use, with one of them being slightly different depending on who's playing. More cards, more survivability, and more utility would definitely be what's needed to bump this class up quite a bit. C definitely belongs here. The Striker is last. I'm definitely going to put this one in C tier as well. If you play the Striker genuinely, the class has very average single target damage, as you can get some decent damage with First Strike, GSD, and Blunt Instrument. And you get some area damage as well if you use a Breaker Mace, but that's about it. If you make use of exploits though, the damage that this Striker can output is up there with the Demolitions. I'm only going to make you aware of that, but I'm not going to consider it for this tier list. The utility on this class suffers just as much as a Slugger. You only generate stim for yourself. You have a little bit of ultimate cooldown and movement speed with perks and a passive, but that's it. Only utility that affects yourself, nothing for the team. And once again, no crowd control either. Not bad in terms of tankiness. You do get extra health regeneration and damage resistance from perks. And you also have a melee armor skill card, which can help you out in close range as well. And you will generate some stim with Stim Siphon. So it's a little bit better than the Slugger in terms of survivability, but not by much. The class suffers though in the same way that the Infiltrator, Blademaster and Protector does. You have to get in close since it's a melee class. So you are going to struggle on those more open maps. Make use of choke points and smaller maps to maximize the use out of this class. Build diversity, once again, there's absolutely no build diversity for this class. All strikers are going to run the exact same 5 cards, with one of them being slightly different depending on who's playing. Crowd control, utility, and number of cards is definitely what is needed to bump this class up a little bit more. Those are all my personal rankings for all the classes in Gears 5. Your choices are probably going to be very, very different. I do want to know what you guys would rate higher or lower, or if you completely disagree with everything I have said in this video. So leave me a comment down below on your personal thoughts. If I had to pick my favourite classes from each category, well, the Infiltrator and the Marksman are definitely my favourite damage classes. The Anchor and Brawler are definitely my favourite tank classes. Combat Medic and Mechanic for support. And the Slugger is probably my favourite promotional class. But of all of them, only one of them is in S tier. So I've tried to keep my bias out of this as much as I can. If anything, I want new and existing players to take away from this is find your class that you prefer playing and master that. I would rather play with someone who is an amazing, confident and knowledgeable slugger than someone who's first time in a tactician or demo. One quick announcement with today's video as well though, you guys have recently pushed me over the 500 subscriber mark coming into the new year, so thank you for that. And this video is going to be going live on a Monday, so the following Tuesday over on Twitch about 7 PM GMT, I will be live on Twitch for you guys to come and watch and join in. And I do plan on streaming every Tuesday from now on, unless something obviously comes up. So make sure you head over there, give us a follow, we can have a chat, you can ask questions, we can play games, and we can hang out. But that's it for this video. Remember to subscribe and like if you enjoyed this video, or don't if you didn't. I do have a bit more Gears content lined up as well, so be sure to check back in the future. But for now, have an awesome day, Gears, and I will see you in the next one.